screen. Give me a second here. Share screen. There we go. Okay. All right. Get to my presentation. Okay, here we go. Good, good. So today we are going to talk about soft proofing, and it's as I said a little bit ago, it's a question we get asked about a lot, and you know, or I should say, what is the question I get asked, or that we get asked, and that is, you know, how do I make sure that the image that I'm seeing on my screen matches what's going to be printed? And a lot of we see this because, or we get this question because people come to us, they've gone to other printers and they say, well, it wasn't quite what I was expecting. You know, the colors were not exact in some cases, or they were slightly off, or they were off a lot. And I try to tell people, depending upon the company they're going with, and not to take, you know, not that we don't want their business, obviously, but I explain to them that if that company is using a proper color management workflow, then really the artist or the photographer needs to look at what they are doing to ensure that they are matching that color management workflow. And soft proofing is a way you can do it. Soft proofing is something that allows you to simulate on your computer screen the colors that you're seeing, so that they look like the colors that you get in print. I tell people all the time, a print is a reflective source of colors, while what you see on your computer screen is a projected source of colors. They're two different, you know, the way your eyes are capturing those colors, or the way those colors are being emitted to your eyes, I should say, is done very differently, okay? And the one with the computer, the computer screen, is going to have so much more capability than what your print is going to be able to produce. So soft proofing is basically, it's kind of like dumbing down your computer screen, your monitor, so that it's more in line with what a printer does. Okay. Now, we've come a long way in the past, gosh, 20 years. I think I heard about soft proofing 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago at least. And going through the process of soft proofing and trying to match colors to the printers that we were using back then, or helping people match the colors that the printers were capable of outputting back then. Quite a challenge. What I've seen over the years, is that the quality of the prints, the quality of that can be outputted, the accuracy has improved dramatically. I'm sure you've seen that too with prints you've done. Yeah. You know, what we're producing now versus what you did when you said you worked in a photo lab years ago, and it's like night and day.
It is. I mean, just things that you'd have to do back then almost like by hand, and you really have one shot at it.
Yeah. So soft proofing is basically simulating the colors on your computer screen to match the colors a printer, you know, the actual printing device outputs. Soft proofing has some requirements, and we're going to talk about those requirements first, and then we're going to talk about how those requirements are met, and then we're going to actually go through the process of soft proofing. So let's talk about the requirements. A calibrated computer monitor. Okay, so calibrating your computer screen is essential to correctly viewing the colors in your image file when simulating your image in print. So soft proofing, again, is to simulate what the printer is going to do. But you can only do that properly if your computer is calibrated. And we'll talk about how that is done as well. So one of the biggest problems people run into when printing their images is they and this is just universal. It's not with any specific printing company, any specific printer. It's just a universal problem when taking a digital image and printing, and that is the complaint that their prints look too dark. And that is usually caused because the computer monitors are just designed to just really oversaturate, make everything look really bright and pretty. So they really just kind of enhance the imagery on the screen. And so it doesn't improve the file, so the file can be kind of lackluster in its saturation, brightness level, and tonal range. But the computer screen compensates for that, with these really nice computer displays. And so everything looks great, on the computer screen, when the photo may technically not really be all that good. Okay. Now, so you have to keep that in mind when you are printing an image, is that the file that you're seeing on your screen is likely being enhanced to some degree or another. I think there was a chat. Oh, okay. So let me actually.
Oh, and one thing you also brought up about screens is to think of them really as a different media. They're backlit, and what paper media, canvas media is something that's going to lack that light that comes, and I think that has always been an interesting fact that I had not really thought about in editing, is that the light source for your images on a screen is going to be basically almost like backlit, and your paper media and stuff does not have that. So
yeah, the paper is actually is going to is bright and white as the room you're looking at it in, whereas your computer screen is going to be bright and white as it's set for. So so there's some differences, because your print is definitely going to always look too dark if you're looking at it under dark conditions, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but if you're looking at your computer, or if you're looking at your print under very bright sunlight, it might not seem quite as dark. So kind of it's relative. A print color and tones can be relative to the ambient light or the surrounding light source. Now it's going to affect colors to some extent, but there's and we can talk about that more. But let's go back to talking about the calibrating the computer screen. Okay, now again, having a calibrated computer screen is essential to correctly viewing the colors. Okay, but how do you do that? Okay, well, you can order one of our calibration prints, and you can hold that print up to your computer screen, open up the corresponding PDF file, and you can make adjustments. And we have instructions on our website how to do that. Maybe you can post in the chat the link to that. Yeah. And that's going to give you, it's going to, on a scale of 1 to 10, or on a scale of 1 to 10, I give a score about, a 7 as far as, accuracy, maybe even a 6. it's better than nothing, but it's not going to be enough to soft proof. The correct way to soft proof, to calibrate your monitor, if you're going to be soft proofing, is to use an external device that actually hangs on your computer screen and measures the colors. Now, there's several systems out there. There's actually probably, I can think of 3 or 4, but at the consumer level, there's something called the Spider X Pro. There's also the Color Monkey by X-Rite, I believe. The Spider X Pro is by Data Color, and that runs about $160. I'm not sure if the Color Monkey is priced about the same or not, but I don't think it's I think it's less than 200. Now, if you're going to be doing lots of prints, lots of printing, and you're anticipating building a business of selling your artwork in the form of prints, and really, making it something, it's a good investment, because especially every time you're going to be creating new artwork, because ultimately it will save you a lot of grief when it comes to knowing whether or not your prints are too bright or too dark. Okay. That's even if you don't soft proof. We find that probably 9 out of 10 people that calibrate their computer screen are, and I kind of just throw those numbers out there, but I would say at least 9 out of 10, if not more, people that calibrate their computer screen are not surprised by the output that they get when they get their prints. Because calibrating their computer screen goes a long way to ensuring that you're not seeing an overly amplified image in print. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so Data Color's Spider comes with software that measures series of tones that flash across your screen. And you could probably YouTube or do a search on YouTube, what the interface looks like. This picture here just kind of gives you one screenshot of the interface, but it also will have you make adjustments to your monitor's temperature settings and brightness levels and so forth. It's relatively simple to use. I feel the wizard's pretty easy. And you can use it on multiple computers. I do find that certain types of computers are easier than others. I'm not sure with the Spider X or not if they've accounted for that. Some of the older version of the Spider, I know, and the software did not really take into account that a lot of the buttons to make adjustments to your monitors aren't there anymore.
Yeah. We've had
so,
people come in and you've told them actually the older monitors.
Yeah, the older monitors tend to cooperate better when it came to calibration. But I'm guessing that with the newer version of Spider and the software that they're using, is that they're taking that in consideration. People are using, we get a lot of people contacting us that we talk to that say they use the Spider or they use the Color Monkey. Next, okay. Next element next thing you'll need is appropriate software. The two most common ones, and there's other programs out there that allow you to soft proof, but the two most common ones, the ones that we're going to show examples with, are Photoshop and Lightroom. And what was the software you were talking about again earlier?
Oh, Procreate.
Procreate. Yeah, I know that's become very popular in the recent.
Our digital artists have
past
really,
year or two.
A little longer than that.
But we don't know if it's a lot of soft proofing out, does it?
Well, you do have a lot of the same features on there. I was talking even to Brandy because she's watched a lot of the YouTubes, and if we have anybody who's an artist who has submitted, I think we have Rena there on YouTube. But if you have worked, a while in it. I think my daughter and them have probably used it for the last 3 years on there, and they grab it when they have a sale. But you have the opportunity to go ahead and set in the settings to set your DPI.
But as far as soft proofing, as far as
Zooming.
simulating color,
It's going to depend on what device you use it for. Now, a lot of people download Procreate to work on tablets and mobile devices, but there's a lot of people that do use it on the desktop, which gives you
probably has some more features, because I know
I think they get more features,
Adobe
probably.
Lightroom has the mobile version
Exactly.
and Photoshop has a mobile version, but it has nowhere near the features that the desktop version has.
Yeah, and I think that's similar with Procreate, but I guess because we see people who have submitted stuff without any issue. I mean, there's a lot of people that use Procreate to and then use us to print for artist markets and stuff like that. So
gotcha. Okay. So we're going to look at Photoshop and Lightroom. So again, we need the calibrated monitor. We need, and then we need the software. Third item we need is an ICC profile. Now, this is a graphic that I have here. I was trying to figure out, okay, how do I illustrate an ICC profile? An ICC profile is literally a data file that tells the printer how the colors need to be printed on a particular piece of, sheet of paper or roll of media. And so this is actually taken from a series of patches that are created to create the color profile. And I'm going to tell you about creating the color profile, because that's very important. Now, once you understand what a color profile is, it'll go a long way to understanding the soft proofing process, I think. So ICC profiles, how are they created? Okay, so this is not going to get real technical, I'm going to, or at least I hope not. I don't think it'll be too technical. I'm going to try to kind of dumb it down so that I understood it.
Or so that I can understand it. I still have a hard time with ICC profiles.
Yeah, but just keep in mind an ICC profile is a data profile. Now, there are ICC profiles that can be used to determine how colors output to print. Those are printer ICC profiles for printers or printer profiles. There are tablets have ICC profiles, projector screens, or the what I'm talking about.
Actual
projection devices. Yeah, scanners, cameras, digital cameras. Okay, it's really just a way to determine how colors need to be displayed and shown. Where printer ICC profiles are different is that they are more concerned with being able to be utilized to help convert digital to print, okay, through the use of software that reads it, like Photoshop or Lightroom. Some of the printer software, the enterprise level printing software that we use to print fine art prints, photo prints, and canvas prints here as well. But let's look at how these ICC profiles, the printer ones, the printer versions, are created. Okay, takes three things, three elements of an ICC profile: media, inks, and the actual printer. And the printer is not as important, obviously, but the media and inks are really what we're going to be talking about more so when it comes to taking that measurement. The printer is really just kind of a vehicle for the inks to be laid out on that media. And there are some settings within the printer itself that do play a role, but primarily it's going to be we're going to be talking about the media as well as the inks more so. Now, all printers are CMYK. Keep that in mind, and that's why in the graphic here we have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Even the printers like the one that you see here, this Canon, this is I believe a 4100. We have probably 5 or 6 of those here. They have like, I think like 10, 12 colors. They have like a light blue, a red, or a blue and a red. They have different versions of black, but the blue and red are essentially versions of cyan.
Well, it's SSR Chavez.
Is
Print.
Joel,
It's
actually
big.
go ahead and,
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to hold it up or anything, but you know, I'm sure we can.
post a few
Like
minutes.
Carmen suggested, take pictures of the items, and that way we can all share them. Yeah, but it is
Just to hit the mic, just so their background conversations are not picked up. There you go.
All right. Yeah, we don't want to.
Well, sometimes people don't know.
Yeah.
If you're watching at home and the kids run in,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so like I was saying, okay, ICC profiles, how they're created. Okay. So let's talk about the media first, though. I kind of got ahead of myself with the inks, and we'll go back to that though. Okay. Media is the material the image is printed on. This might be a photo paper, canvas, or a fine art paper. Okay. Now here at FinerWorks, and I use this as an illustration, we don't print to sheets of paper. The printers we use don't really print to sheets of paper very well. All of our printers, the Canons, like the ones you saw there, and then the other Canons and the Epsons, we put these huge rolls of paper on it. Okay. They're essentially rolled up versions of some of the sheet paper that you might be able to find at the your photo supply store and so forth. In some cases, there might be specific to fine art printing companies like us to be able to order. Anyway, but the media is that material, okay? And again, usually it's a photo paper, a canvas, or a fine art paper. Now, all media has a distinct bright point. So not all media is the same, okay? Some papers are going to have a brighter white point, which means that they're going to appear whiter. Some are going to look a little off-white or eggshell white. Some are going to have maybe a little bit of a bluish hue. When we talk about metallic photo papers, they may have, they really are not white. They have more of a kind of a silver tone. So your media is going to definitely play a role, or going to be one of those elements for creating that ICC profile. You need to be able to have that media handy when creating the ICC profile. Now, you guys aren't going to be creating ICC profiles. The paper manufacturers create the ICC profiles, or the labs. Matter of fact, we are going to be revamping a lot of our profiles and rebuilding those as we bring in new printers. I mean, we're starting to phase out the Canon 4000s and then going into the 4100s. By the end of this year, we should have about 12 of those. We'll probably be adding some more Epsons as well. So as we add new, we don't change out our media that much, but we do have to change out printers as the old ones die out, and we run them to the ground. And we, sometimes the only choice we have is to buy the next one up. And so we're going to have to start really kind of focus on building our own custom profiles versus relying on the manufacturer, because a lot of times the manufacturers are not keeping up like they should.
ICC Profiles, anyway, just to kind of think of it in a physical form, is it basically like, because you're saying it's kind of created by the paper manufacturer, is this kind of saying what level of saturation of ink you need for that paper to take to kind of make this color?
It does. It determines, well, like I said earlier, not only the colors, how the colors need to be outputted, but how dense those colors need to be. If you have a very absorbent paper and you just put the same level of black on that you would on a non-absorbent paper, a lot of that black gets absorbed in the paper, and when an image is printed that way, it's going to look washed out.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to the profile needs to account for that as well. That figure out needs to know how much ink needs to be laid out so you don't get a washed out image. So going back to the ink system, okay, this is the third component of an ICC profile. Not all inks are the same or have the same capacity to provide a specific color. So you want the system that is going to be creating that ICC profile to be able to try to eke out as much out of those inks as possible. Okay. So again, like I said earlier, you have 4 primary colors in print. Okay. And which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And as manufacturers, printers, what's been happening with like Epson and Canon, who makes really kind of the top of the line color printers, in my opinion, both commercially and at the consumer level, what they're finding is these limitations that just those 4 inks have by themselves, and they're coming up with variations of cyan, which might give you a blue, or variations of a red, which might give you or variations of magenta, which might give you a red. The other thing they're doing is they're creating variations of black, where you have a matte black and photo black. So when we print, let's say on one of our giant Canon printers, and we print on the satin luster paper, which is technically it's a satin photo paper. It uses a photo black ink cartridge versus a matte black ink cartridge, which might be used on, say, the Hahnemann photo rack, okay, which is more absorbent and a matte surface. The other colors that they're adding are grays. I think we have a light gray and a gray and a light gray even. And then we have also light magenta and light cyan. The only color that they have not really messed around with is yellow. Yellow's been yellow. So, but yeah, now that I think about it, there is a light cyan and a light magenta. So it's trying to eke out the companies like Epson and Canon, even you're now seeing it at the commercial, with the commercial printers, like with Mamaki and Muto, and they're starting to create these tones that are kind of subsets of your 4 primary colors. But again, it comes down to 4 primary colors. And then finally, the printing system, which marries the inks to the media. The printing system is going to do more than just lay out the inks. It's going to also determine the hardware is going to be able to make the determination as the resolution, the density of the inks, and so forth. And that's all done through software. So those are the 3 components of what you need to create an ICC profile. Now, companies like us and the media manufacturers, what we do is we use special tools. Well, first, we print out these patches like what you see in this illustration or this example photo, these patches of hundreds to thousands of colors. And more, usually, typically, the more colors, the more tonal range a particular ICC profile will have. This device that you see here actually it's actually quite big, but it actually goes and automatically reads, that arm reads all the patches, all the colors in the patches. And then it combines that data and stores it as an ICC profile. So this sheet, and we'll print like, maybe 10 of these sheets of different shades or what have you on canvas, or we'll print it on the archival matte paper, or maybe on our cardstock even, specific cardstock, and then we'll have this device measure it and create that ICC profile, our printers within its software, and then we'll save that data because it's recorded how all those colors have been measured. It's able to create an ICC profile that can be used for soft proofing. Make sense?
Yeah.
Any questions on that? Do we have any?
Well, how many, like, I know, like when I look at the inks, when I'm just passing by, I'll see a lot of cartridges of inks that go in our printer, but it's still, like you're saying, it's still going to be the CMYK.
Yeah, like I said, that some of those colors are subsets of one of those 4 primary colors, with the exception of yellow. Like I said, we haven't seen a light yellow or a dark yellow.
And I'm guessing is the black in it is what probably.
Yeah,
is
with light yellow, just with some exceptions, I think we just have one type of printing system that does it. I guess we have 2, but only one printing system that we use actually prints white. So and it prints white as a layer under before it applies the color, because white is really kind of it's a color that's used. Again, the white point is used to determine how much yellow, how much black, how much magenta, how much cyan needs to be placed on it. So if you want to get light yellow, you just put less yellow.
What's giving a printer, I guess it's color palette, the total range of colors it can get? Is it
this ICC profile?
ICC?
Yeah. Based upon the paper it's being printed to. Because if you just go by, let's say you take just out of the box, some default bond paper, just plain paper, and you use that profile, which is kind of like the default profile that comes with your printer or what have you, you might get a decent looking print. You might not. It's kind of depends, I guess, on the image. But you're definitely not going to get anywhere near the potential that you should be able to get by using the ICC profile that's been assigned to that particular media. Okay. So one of the biggest problem that we see though right now with the profiles, like I said before, just getting, with these printers, getting the media companies to actually have decent ICC profiles. Now, one of the things I want to touch on is when creating these ICC profiles, the ideal scenario is to create that ICC profile with the printer that's actually going to be doing the printing. I'm talking about the exact same printer. Now, that's a luxury that you really don't always have because, for instance, we have 3 or 4 of the Canon 4000s. Then we have 5 or 6 of the 4100s, the Canon 4100s. And we might be printing I don't know, I'm just using an example, maybe the archival matte paper on the 4000. Okay. And that printer, let's say that, one of the printers it's assigned to goes the way of the ghost. It's time to, well, let's go ahead and start printing it on one of the other 4000s. Or we get our huge giant order, someone orders, 10,000 prints. Okay. Well, we have to have all 4 of those, 4 or 5 of them, whatever it is, running, during the evening hours, just churning out prints. And so we can't, profile to that specific printer, especially if that customer is going to be soft proofing. Same thing with the manufacturers. Many of the manufacturers, they'll invest in a particular printer model, one of the Epsons, Canons, or they'll actually buy, a bunch of printers, and they'll go and profile for that particular one that they have. But generally, it's going to be good for any company that's using that printer with that particular media. Like Haniel has a whole library of ICC profiles for different printers that are commonly used to print their media. And a lot of times we'll find that those Haniel profiles, that the ones that they create are quite good. Now, we have other companies that will create ICC profiles, and they're okay, but feel we can do better if we produce them in-house ourselves. So we'll do them in-house. So it's it's really kind of.
Now, ICC profiles, just with our customers, one of the questions I've seen a lot is when I get down to cards. And what was the reason for ICC profiles not being available for cards?
Well, I thought
you have covered.
So the problem with cards, profiling the media on cards is the, and this gets more into the whole, and I don't want to say call it the supply chain issue, because this has been going on since, before all that. The paper companies generally, and when I'm not talking about the, your copy paper or your, at that level, I'm not talking about your fine art paper or your photo papers, but it's not uncommon that you see variations from batch to batch. So you might get, maybe they're just not produced at the same level of care and precision that, say, Haniel does with their fine art papers, or what Fredericks does with their canvas. So it's because you can have this slight variations in papers. It's soft proofing on those particular media is not as reliable. Okay, now we are going to go and we're going to reprofile our cards. One of our goals this year, hopefully in March, maybe even sooner, but probably in March, is to profile our cards, because we feel that we can get better color, more accuracy than what we're currently getting. Because a lot of times people order a print and then they'll order a card along with it of the same image, and they're like, how come it doesn't look as rich?
Yep. I had read your mind, Jessica, when I knew, because that has always been the natural question right now.
And the biggest reason is because the card printers, that these are toner based printers, they only have four tones, cyan, black, yellow, and magenta. That's it. They don't have those those helper tones.
Yeah,
Okay, those
additional cartridges that we.
yeah, to eke out, you know, a wider tonal range. And plus those, you know, the paper, you know, the paper is not, again, it's not as consistent or not as bright. You know, it's a card.
Mhm.
It's cheap. It's you know, it's not a high-end print.
Yeah,
So but we think, you know, there's if we can get the right profiles that are generally in the ballpark,
mhm.
then that will go a long way for people. You might, if you soft proof with those, you know, the soft proof is not going to be as accurate as we'd like it to be, but it's going to generally help quite a bit, I think. So.
And she says that her cards still look great. I just wanted to know if I needed to do anything. Yeah.
Yeah,
And if she's ordering
yeah,
a
just
printing card.
yeah, I think it's really kind of just a limitation with the technology. I am hopeful though, as that technology improves. We're doing some things also outside of ICC profiles, or profiling the paper. We're doing some things with the technology this year that is should also make a difference. Some of it is even the printing software, and I think we're looking at an upgrade to the printing software, especially with what we discovered with the last, you know, winter, or this winter's card volume has become so great that it's really putting our production to the test.
Yeah.
So so
Gerald's busy.
yeah, he's our lead card team manager, I guess. Is that the right word? Okay, so let's get into soft proofing. Is there any other questions?
No.
Okay, all right, but okay. So typical settings for soft proofing. Okay, now we're going to go back to this because everything I'm going to show you next is going to be hard to remember. And you'll see to it that I want you that we save this as a PDF and make it available to download somewhere.
Sure. Yeah,
Can we do that?
Yeah.
So because this way, you guys, because this is kind of the end of the slideshow part, but I think it is. Yeah, this is the end of the slideshow part. So this will be important information if you're going to be soft proofing through Photoshop and the actual settings you'll use. So let's go ahead and go to Photoshop first. Okay, and I have some pretty neat images here that I just kind of found, some stock imagery, one of the stock image sites that we subscribe to, and we're partnered with them. Yeah, we do some printing for them. So we have this one image, pink, and we have a flower. I just call this cool artwork. This one's kind of impressionistic. This one is still life, and this is kind of a good, gives people kind of a good idea of the type of imagery people are ordering from us all, every day. Thousands of images like this throughout the day are getting printed, and some images are, wow, I mean, they look great on screen, they look great in print, some not so much. And so what we hope is, with what we're going to show you, is going to help those images that not so much are going to be looking great. So soft proofing in Photoshop is not that difficult, and I'm going to kind of walk you through what the process is. And let's start with a still life image here. Okay. First thing you got to do is, once you open up the file, or actually the first thing you have to do is you have to download the ICC profile. I think that's
and we have those available.
Yeah, on our website, if you go to FinerWorks.com, down here, we have our ICC profiles where you can find them. Okay. Now, before you just start downloading them and using them, I would suggest you check to see if we have an updated version of them, because we are in the process of updating these. If you use the ones that are there, they should be fine. You won't be able to take maximum advantage of them because basically the changes that are happening from one profile to the other are relatively subtle right now. But if you can get the latest one and contact us if we have the latest one posted, and it may, sometimes there's a delay, so forth, with actually once we get that file and testing it and then actually getting it posted. When you download the profile, you will want to place those profiles in the appropriate location. On Windows, it's actually quite easy. You can just click the profile once you download and say install profile, select that option. It's really is easy. On a Mac, it's a little bit more complicated. You need to put it in a folder. This is the path right here. You need to put it in that particular folder. I think some of the earlier versions, it's pretty much the same. One of the things people ask, though, is what is the difference between an ICC profile and ICM profile? Because sometimes, though, some of these profiles that you download will be ICM. Like I'm going to go to the canvas page here, and let's say I select the gloss canvas, have the ICC profile right there. And let me look, see, I think that's, yeah, see, that's an ICM profile. So if you're going to be using, if you have problems reading the ICM profile, I know an ICM is a Windows version of an ICC profile. In most cases, Macs should be able to read them, but we have had instances where people contact us, say that their MacBook Pro or what have you does not read that, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's a version issue or what. I'm on a Mac right here, and I don't have any problems with them. Yeah. We have an older, Brian uses an older Mac. He doesn't have a problem with them either. So it's one of those versions in between, I guess.
Sometimes making sure everything's in. Found Trips on YouTube is just asking, is the Canvas ICC the latest?
Yes, it is. Although the artisan profile is actually going to be getting redone. The one that's currently up there is for artisan canvas. May need to, I need to check on that. I'm not sure. Maybe we can post something.
Okay.
Or you?
I'll put that in our in chats in the comments here. And if anything, I might put it as a social post as well, so y'all can see it on a.
We just had to switch the Onyx Media profile for that, which is, it's a whole nother type of profile, but it uses the ICC profile, and it's using a different. We're using the manufacturer's profile, and it made some changes. So because the artisan canvas up until earlier this month, or the end of this, maybe, I guess, well, we're in February now, early January, I guess it was, we updated our printing process on the artisan canvas, and now we're getting nearly the color gamut and accuracy that we're doing on the gloss canvas and the matte canvas. So it's an incredible improvement on the output. So because of that, I know the profile need to be updated, and I'm not sure if the download, I don't think the download's reflecting that yet.
Okay, Foundtrip says Artisan is what they're using.
Yeah.
Does the ICC profile updates affect inventory images then?
It does, because, well, let's, and this is something I wanted to talk about is you want to keep in mind with your virtual inventory and soft proofing, and there's not really a good way around this, unfortunately, is that, like I said earlier, the printers change. We used to print on Epson 9880s, which was a really good printer. That was about 15 years ago. Okay. And then we went and we switched to Canon printers, and I think the IPF 8300. We introduced virtual inventory as an option back when we were printing on the, I think around when we were still using the IPF 8300s. They don't make those printers anymore. So anyone that was soft proofing
15 years ago
for a printer that we were using, 10, 15 years ago, well, 10 years ago is probably more realistic. Unfortunately, just, they're not going to be quite the same. Now, there's not going to be a huge difference, but there is going to be some subtle differences, especially over that span of time frame. And we'd love to stick with one printer, but the technology changes, technology improves, and manufacturers like Canon and Epson, they discontinue those earlier models. And so really it makes the ICC profiles for those printers obsolete.
What would you suggest is a good time frame for people who have virtual inventory to maybe do a test print, just to kind of
so if you can check to see if, and you can even ask us, email customer service, find out if there's been any changes in the printers being used or inks being used. And if there have been on that, the changes is good. If there's been any change on the printers used for that particular media, that's when you want to possibly do a test print. Okay. Because this happens, people will order a print, and then maybe a year later they'll order the same print, and maybe for a customer or what have you, and they say, hey, it doesn't look quite the same. What happened? Well, the profile may have changed. The ICC profile may have changed. I know this is going to be a problem because with the improvements we made with the artisan canvas, it's going to be more accurate, but there's going to be some people there that say they've been perfectly happy with what they were getting and might not be too happy with the changes. And unfortunately, that's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Like kind of a growing pain.
Yeah.
And like I said, I mean, one thing like I said, came here like 4.5 years ago to order a print, haven't gotten rid of me yet, is, our company does a really good job at making sure you get the print you like. And for that reason, because we want you to be a return customer, and, so I have always pointed people our direction that are friends of mine, because I know they're going to get exactly what they want at the end of the, sometimes it's a process to get the print working on there. And we have a number of artists, I mean, a lot that are Etsy, that have been on Etsy shops for a number of years, that have grown kind of with us. So that's, like I said, I haven't heard that much feedback on that as far as like them noticing huge differen's in there. We have some that have been here probably almost. We have people that have been with us from the beginning that, they're,
their artwork has, we'll call it, progressed as far as in print and changing. So yeah, so you're going to just over time, you have to kind of keep that in mind, that those with the changes of technology, that it may be necessary to soft proof again. Now, fortunately, soft proofing is not that difficult. It doesn't take that long. So we got past the download part. Okay. That's the easiest part, but it's not that hard with Photoshop and Lightroom, especially Lightroom. Lightroom is very easy to do with. Okay, so I have this image here, and I am going to show you the dialog for soft proofing now. So from here, we're going to go to the view, and we're going to go to proof setup, and we're going to select custom. I know it's checked. I don't know why it's checked or not, but it's always checked for some reason. Okay. So remember that list of things to remember? Okay. That's related to this right here. This is really this typical settings for soft proofing. That's what this is talking about. So in this case, the device to simulate. Okay. Now this is your ICC profile. Okay. So I'm going to come over here, and I am going to, and I for this exercise, I downloaded several of our profiles that we use. The Sunset E-Satin paper, which is or it's the same as the Moab satin luster paper. They're the same paper. Like, different companies put their own labels on them, but they're exact same. The premium archival matte, which is our house stock or archival matte paper. And then the cold press textured bright white, which we call just watercolor paper. Those are some of our most popular. This is one of our card stocks, and we'll see how that looks different as well. But by default, I have this one selected right here, and this gives you an idea of what happens when you select it. See how that image has changed?
Oh, yeah.
Does it show there? Okay. So you always want to have that preview on. And one of the things you may notice with certain papers is that when you put that preview on, it starts to kind of mute the print. And this is, the computer screen is doing is more of an optical illusion, but it is trying to simulate the fact that you're converting a projected light source into a reflected light source for that image, because your artwork is not projecting light, it's reflecting light. So these settings here, you want to always have your rendering intent set at perceptual. Perceptual is the recommended setting if you are going to be printing artwork or photography. Okay, there's some instances where these other options should be used, but all of our printers are set and configured to print in a perceptual mode. Okay, with the appropriate printing software. You will leave preserve RGB numbers unchecked and turn on black point compensation. Now, people ask, well, what is black point compensation? And I tell them, don't worry about it, just check it, because it's hard to explain. Black point compensation has to do with compensating for the way black shifts in print. Okay, that's kind of a oversimplified way of saying it, but you can do a search on it, and if you can, it's hard to find a good description that kind of spells it out in an easy to understand fashion, because it can get a little technical. But needless to say is it has to do with, again, how black is distributed, getting that deep black and so forth in print. But you want to keep that checked. It's especially if you're going from, if you're working in CMYK. Now, we recommend submitting images in RGB, but definitely keep that black point compensate checked. If you don't, it probably won't make much of a difference visually in that soft proofing process, but it won't hurt to check it. Then simulate paper color. Now, if you notice how when I uncheck it and check it, it really kind of changes things quite a bit. In this preview, you have less kind of a reaction, but you have that checked and that checked, and that's going to give you the ideal kind of preview matching that ICC profile, or matching how that image should look in print. Now, once you've done that, you can just click OK, okay, and you'll see up here in your file, it'll indicate that this particular profile is being used. Now, you can go in here and you can make adjustments, because if you could say, you know what, this red has gone a little too muted. I want it to look a little bit redder. You can go in here and you can make your adjustments. You know, maybe hue, saturation, maybe you just want to saturate an image, you know, improve the saturation. Now, that won't affect the ICC profile, but it will affect your image. So now that I've done that, I'm going to come back over here and I'm going to I can uncheck that, or I can save it and go File, Save As. Now, when I save it, I want to keep the original sRGB it was in. I don't want to embed the profile. And this is where people make a mistake sometimes. They embed the profile. No, don't do that. Now, some color labs may tell you to do it, but at FinerWorks, and I think most labs I know, they don't want you to do that. Because what will happen is our software will already has all these profiles. The printing software has these profiles and knows to use what profile to use. What you're doing here is simply trying to view the image under the same conditions that's going to be outputted in print. So when you submit your file, you're submitting a file that's been adjusted, if it needs to be adjusted, to compensate for the changes. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So leave the embed color profile unchecked. And you can save it and say, call it version 2, whatever you want to call it. That's essentially how that happens. Now I'm going to go to a different color profile. I'm going to go to View, again, Custom, and I'm going to change to this Solar White. Wow. Yeah. See the difference? Mm-hmm. That's one of our card profiles. Okay. Now, it looks quite washed out. So under that condition, and that's sometimes the complaint, the cards look a little bit washed out. So under that situation, what I might want to do is I might want to come over here, use Photoshop tools to make adjustments to the brightness and contrast. Try to account for that. Now, you might be limited. You might not be able to get everything you want out of that, but you know, it does give you it's as good as it can get when it comes to trying to, you know, actually making color adjustments and seeing how those color adjustments are going to be portrayed in print. So, yeah, so you have all the editing tools you normally would have, you know, as far as making tonal ranges. And some people are really good at knowing how to use all these tools. There's videos on YouTube how to use the levels, tools, curves. Curves is a little bit, I've always thought a little bit more hard to do, but it gives you the most control. Ooh, that looks yucky.
Yeah.
but you can use those to try to kind of tweak the colors in your images and get better results. Let's see how that affects an image like this. I'm going to come over to View, Custom, and wow, see how that changed? Kind of gave it a little bit of a bluish cast. And that's that satin luster paper, that photo paper. And a lot of your photo papers will do that. They'll give an image a little bit of a bluish cast. So you want to kind of keep that in mind.
Well, I think we're kind of losing someone here, because it says, so you do this at the very end and not use the ICC at the beginning of the workflow, like during the initial raw settings?
No, not at all. So in Photoshop, you don't. In Photoshop, you want to keep your. And then when we're talking with, there are exceptions to with other workflows, but generally, when dealing with photos and printing artwork, you want to work in an sRGB environment. Okay, you can work in Pro RGB. In Photoshop, you can come over here and you can come to where is it? Edit color settings, or you can assign profile. You can do all that over here. But you can always, keep your RGB working space, which is what your computer's is displaying sRGB. Keep it mainstream. When you get to some of these higher end RGB formats like Pro Photo RGB, they may print fine, they may look great. You can eke out. I mean, they're able to give you better looking images, but those profiles are nowhere near as expansive. Or those colors profiles in print, those printer profiles are nowhere near as expansive as what the profiles your monitors can display. I think that's what she's talking about. Is
Did that answer your questions? That was I found trips on. I think. Oh, they say okay.
Okay, good. Yeah, I should have brought that up earlier because that is an important thing to know. Because sometimes people will say, "Well, what is it? Is it good to, open up Photoshop and set that color space there?" I say no, just keep it sRGB. I think it just adds a layer of complexity that doesn't need to be there. Anyway, this is kind of what we're showing is more of a mainstream workflow as well. So let me go back to where I was at. View, let's lose this. Okay. So again, notice how the tones have shifted when we went to the satin luster paper. That happens a lot with the photo papers, the ones that are going to be using the photo black, or that are going to keep the inks more on the surface. They tend to have more of that kind of silvery, kind of bluish hue to them. Now let's compare it to our premium archival matte. Now that is a very white, bright white paper. Okay, see how the contrast kind of shifted down a little bit. Okay, that also has a little bit of that bluish tone, and that is because of that very bright white point that paper has. Oops, darn it.
I think that's what I do like about the ICC profiles, is that they do take into account the brightness of the white of the paper. And if you have the sample kit and you've looked at our media, you'll see that white. And that's why we tell people, when they ask us what paper to print on, it is a very personal choice. It's what you're going to like, what kind of brightness of white, the texture.
But one thing that I find fascinating with this is notice how the contrast changes between the two. And that is because that's the difference between using that matte black versus that photo black ink. A matte surface is not going to have as much contrast as a glossy or a satin surface is. Let's see how it looks on the Sunset, which is our watercolor paper. Has a warmer tone, and that paper is, even though it's a bright white, does have a little bit of a warmer tone, I believe. So you can kind of see how the tones shift. So that's what's going to happen in print. If you were to print this image on satin luster paper, not make any changes, just print as is, that would be how it looks. You print this exact same image on premium archival matte, that's how it's going to look. Print the exact same image on the watercolor paper, that's how it's going to look. So you're going to see these slight shifts. So really what you need to do is you need to optimize, unless you're willing to accept some leeway, which most people actually are. But if you want exact matches, you're going to need to do the soft proof, and you're going to need to create a version of that file for that particular media. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. Now, some of these tones you don't see a whole lot of change. This is the watercolor. Okay, let's look at this. This is the watercolor paper, and this is on the 4100, which is the newer version. I don't remember right offhand which printer we're printing that particular paper, but here's an example how going from the previous generation printer to the next generation printer can affect the tones. See a very slight shift.
Yeah.
Okay, and that could be because of different, maybe the particular printer capabilities. It could be because when they did a better job of when that profile was created, they did a better job the first time around or the second time around, I'm not sure which, if that had a bearing, or it could be, just, well, it's going to be one or the other, really, generally.
That's really good to know, like, just doing from the gallery side. Sometimes I do have some artists that to get their they'll offer different media. Well, no, like they'll have like maybe
the difference in
the
cards,
card thing.
But anyway,
they'll have like an Entrada rag 8x10, and then they're gonna have a 16x20 on a sunset. And
that's
they're using the same tier gallery, same file, but you're going when you're offering various paper medias or canvas media, you might have that. You're saying that shift change.
Yeah, that is unfortunately kind of a limitation with that particular model of operation. It's not been a big problem, but at some point we're going to have to figure out how to better address that. And I don't quite know what the ideal solution is, because the artists don't want to have to manage a whole bunch of different files, different versions. I think what my recommendation, and this is what I see most of our top sellers doing, is they stick with maybe one or two medias. You think, okay, well, I'm going to create, especially in GeoGalleries, they say, well, I'm going to create a canvas. I'm going to create this wide range of products. Well, our top sellers aren't doing that. They're creating maybe a wide range of sizes, and maybe mounting styles, or framing options, but they're sticking with certain medias. And we're seeing the most successful artists that work with us don't really, they have their one media that they stick with, maybe two. And so I would say that's probably the best approach.
I think it's like paper canvas kind of media, and then you get frame options.
Find the paper that you like, and just focus toward that paper. I think that's the best solution. Or find the canvas, or find a canvas and find a paper. So getting consistencies, the same consistency across all of those is sometimes hard to do because the papers have different white points, different absorption levels for the inks, different levels of reflection. They reflect light differently. So there's those to contend with. And then there's also this kind of annoying thing about inks is certain colors tend to shift more under certain lighting conditions. So under UV lights, some of the blue tones tend to shift more under fluorescent lights than they do in natural daylight. So you also have that to contend with. And these tend to be real subtle things, but not. But it's good to be aware of, especially if you're that artist trying to get the most accurate color tones available. Now, what time are we at? Ooh.
About 10 minutes or so.
Okay, so this next thing is very important. Okay, and this is called Gamut Warning, and this happens time and time again. Not every day, but we see it enough where it's noticeable. And I have this image here that I found, and I thought, okay, notice how it has a huge expanse of pink.
Oh.
And I decided to be original and call this image title it pink. Okay. Now, there's nothing wrong with the color pink as far as the ability to output it. And I'm just using pink as an example here. But let's say you wanted to print this on one of our profiles. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select the satin. Notice how that pink shifts quite a bit. Okay. Okay. Well, that's just, coincidental. Now, if you get that amount of shifting in an area with that much pink, as in this case, it could be a blue or it could be a green. We're using this particular pink as an example. And you print that, and you say, man, my print looks way off. What did you guys do?
Yep.
Well, we didn't do anything other than print it the way it was sent to us. Okay. So this is where soft proofing can really, play a big role when you have these big expanses of the same color. When you have a very detailed images with lots of color, soft proofing is still just as useful, but the differences that you see are going to
More subtle.
more subtle. They're not going to be as noticeable. You may notice a flower here, plant here, your signature, this cloud over here, all this different changes. But when you have these big, massive expanses of solid color, that's where you're going to notice the difference. And unfortunately, with cards, this is where we see this problem more often because that limitation. Let me select the card profile that we have. Wow, look at that. Did you see that difference? This is the way it was. This is the way it is with the card. So that difference right there, okay, is something that you have to contend with at times. And so soft proofing can help you because with that knowing how it's going to output, you can make the changes before you print it. Now, one of the things to also keep in mind is this very useful tool called Gamut Warning. Okay. I'm going to go back to the satin luster for that. Okay. A Gamut Warning lets you see colors that the printer is going to be struggling and is going to be doing its best guess to match. Okay. Now in Photoshop, when you check gamut warning, everything in gray is going to be, okay, we're showing you in soft proof mode what we think the printer is going to output, but we're not exactly 100% there. We're maybe, 90% there, 80%. So this is where soft proofing, what you're seeing in your soft proof, may be off just a little bit. So that reviewing that gamut warning can be important, because that way, maybe I need to make some adjustments to that gray, or maybe I need to be willing to accept a little bit of variation in that level of pink, or in this case, the level of pink. Now, some images like this one, I'm going to go back to that still life image. Okay. Now I'm going to turn on the gamut warning. I still have it set under soft proof. Let's just make sure. Yeah. Oh, I have the card. Let me go back to the satin luster. Okay. Now I'm going to turn the gamut warning on that one. See some just a few areas of where the soft proof may be off a little bit. And that's just in this area right here. Do you see where that bell pepper is? Yeah, so generally that image is going to be fine. A lot of images we see. Let's look at this one. Let's see what custom do I have. Okay, put that sunset satin, and I'm gonna do the gamut warning just in that little area, that gray area here. So that now I can go and I can isolate that area and I can adjust it until I don't see any problems in that, or kind of accept the fact that these gray indicators, it's not going to print gray. That's not what this is saying. This is just giving you a visual area, letting you know what area is going to be problematic. Now, Lightroom shows this area as it kind of highlights it in red. I like the way Lightroom does it a little bit better. But so that's your gamut warning. Now, you may not have that same problem if you go to View, Custom, and let's change it to, I don't know. I should have downloaded the photo rag. Handing me a photo rag. That's a really good profile. Ooh, see the watercolor paper has even more areas where the gamut might be a little problematic. Where, in other words, the tones that the printers might be struggling to match the tones that it's being able to see on screen. So that's because, again, the colors that a printer can output is not anywhere at the range that a digital file a computer can display. Okay, so that's what the gamut warning is for. So always review the gamut warning. A lot of times you might not even see any gamut warning highlights like you have in here. So so the gamut warning can be but it can be useful, especially if you have a situation where you have like this big expansive color, which suddenly you say, hey, it's going to be pink, but maybe not quite the same pink. Maybe a little off a little bit. Lastly, before we go, I said Lightroom. And Lightroom, if you're not familiar with Lightroom is it's different than Photoshop. It gives you, it's more what we call allows you to do global adjustments, or designed to do global adjustments, than Photoshop, which is designed for you to be able to kind of make isolated adjustments. They do share some of the same tools, such as being able to adjust levels, brightness, contrast, so forth. But Lightroom is really kind of designed for Photoshop users to be able to, photographers to be able to make, a lot of quick adjustments to large batches of files at once. but it has something, a module called the develop mode. Now this is Lightroom Classic. There's the regular Lightroom if you have Creative Cloud, and the Lightroom Classic. The regular one, you are not going to see all these features. And it's not, I don't believe it gives you the ability to do soft proofing. If it does, I'm not sure how to do it in that one. I'm more familiar with the classic version, which is really kind of, is going to be much more comprehensive, kind of like Photoshop web versus,
Yeah.
desktop. And so this is kind of like Photoshop desktop as far as its capabilities. But the default setting, or I think, is in library mode, where you see kind of all your batches of images, and you can choose, the thumbnail size and so forth. You can kind of sort them and create, adjustments over here that are going to be like I can do quick develop. I can auto and make auto adjustments to all of them at the same time. But this is not about how to use Lightroom. We're assuming you know how to use Lightroom. This is how to access a particular image in soft proof in Lightroom. And it's really easy. You select the image. I'm going to select this one again. I'm going to select soft proof. And when you do that, you see over on the right-hand side, you see some of the similar settings. You have the profile, in this case, again, the satin. You have your rendering intent. You can select relative or perceptual. Again, recommend perceptual, and simulate paper and ink. You don't have some of those other black point compensation, all that. Again, you just those are good to have checked in Photoshop, but you don't have to have it checked. But Photoshop or Lightroom kind of simplifies this. And then to check your gamut warning, and do that, just put your mouse over that little thing right there. You can click on it, or you can unclick on it and just hold your mouse over it. And you can see that those were that gray areas. Mm-hmm. So Lightroom makes adjustment or highlights it in red. And from there, you can make, adjustments to your exposure, try to bring out that, kind of get rid of those.
Reduce that area.
Reduce those
problematic.
Those problematic areas. Yeah. But again, you make your adjustments and then you save your copy. How does it do that? Okay. So anyway, so that's how it's done in Lightroom. Mm-hmm. And it's actually quite simple. If you know how to use Lightroom, I would recommend doing the soft proofing through Lightroom over Photoshop, just because it's so much easier. But if you're not familiar with Lightroom, then go the Photoshop route, because trying to figure out how to use Lightroom is much harder than it is to soft proof in Photoshop.
Now, there is one soft proofing thing too that I want to say beginners, really the first time beginner who are not quite even at the color matching, is resolution. Because we will get a lot of people who are new to printing, and their idea of a digital image is maybe something they had off a 1990 website sometimes. Mm-hmm. And we've gotten, and I've even seen it on geo galleries where and they're asking me, why is this image not showing? Because the resolution is so low. If it's at 980, on pixels, you divide that by 300, that kind of tells you the best max print size you're going to get, which is about 3 inches.
3 inches, yeah.
So when we tell people to look on Photoshop, there's a view they can do. First you make sure you're at 300 DPI or your size is going to view and 100%. And that will help you at least see I guess that, but I don't want to say pixelation, because when it goes to print, it's not pixelation.
You're talking about looking at it to scale?
Yeah.
Okay, yes. So just real quick, I think this is not really soft proofing, but it is to some extent, because what you're doing is you're trying to simulate your thing in print. Let me go back to share screen just real quick. Oh, and yeah, here are the settings, and we'll make sure that for Photoshop. Um, uh, we'll go ahead and save that for everyone. One of the things in Photoshop is it has this ruler tool. I always keep it on.
I do too.
Yeah, I don't think it's on by default, but you can turn it on by going to where is it? Do they? Oh, I was in the wrong menu. I was in the. I think I was in the. No, I don't know what menu I was in, to tell you the truth. Rulers, under view, turn rulers on. So under the same menu for proofing, go to view and turn your rulers on. Now, let's say you want this to be this looks like the aspect ratio is 16:24. Okay. So you want to go over here, uncheck resample, change your width to 24. Yeah, I'm just out of experience, knew it was going to be 16:24, I guess. And you see that your resolution is 342. Now that's great.
That is.
So that should be fine. But that's assuming that image had not been enlarged to that, because you could enlarge it to that. But
yeah.
Because if I had that resampling checked and I set this to, let's say, 3,000 million billion DPI, yeah, it's going to be really, I'm just going to cause Photoshop to freak out. But so you can enlarge the image, and then Photoshop will add pixels that weren't there, and you could get a pixelated image. So let's assume you didn't do that, and you don't want to do that. So
that's
let's
why how you capture your image originally is part of
your camera. When you open it up, bring this in from your camera, your digital cameras, or it's going to say 72, and it'll probably have a huge number here like 30 or something like that. But once you uncheck that and change it to 300, you'll see what your image is really kind of optimized for 27:18. Now I'm going to go back to 24:16. I'm going to click OK. Now notice how the ruler changed from up here. Here is 24, and then 0 to 16. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, and Photoshop has something view, and it has, they change where they print size. Okay. Okay. I don't like that. The idea was so you could see what is, going to look like, this, scale it to the size, but on this high resolution Mac, it doesn't work. So what I do is I come over here and I Command plus, and I'm going to zoom in to, well, these are actually the dimensions of physical inches. And I'm going to take a tape measure, and I'm going to hold it and measure this. Is this actually, on my computer screen, is this an inch? And this looks about an inch here. Now, once I've done that, I can
move it around and see.
Oh, what did I do? I moved the image. I can move around. And I can see, oh yeah, okay, yeah. Looks like the resolution is good. Now, because I'm looking at it at scale, if I were to hold a print up to it, this is the scale that I'm seeing it at, that it's going to be printed at based upon, the 16:24. And I can see, yeah, it looks good. So you can inspect the resolution beforehand.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to do that when you do your soft proofing. Might as well. It's easy enough to do.
Yeah.
So
I think it's always a nice step. Well, we're at 8:06. Again, if you're watching this on Zoom, we had somebody ask if they can watch this video later. Yes, you can. Go to our YouTube channel and hit subscribe. Immediately as soon as we're done, it starts loading up on there as a recording. And over the week, it gets a little bit edited, like the intro part gets cut off, maybe like where we're getting our setup done. But you can get on there, and if you have questions, you can put them there, or you can email them to me at Melissa@FinerWorks. I'll be glad to answer if you have any questions on our video, or basically I'll send them to James and get the right answer, and I'll get that to you. Carrie, Joel, thank y'all so much. Jessica on Zoom, thank y'all for watching. Same thing over onto our YouTube. Thank y'all for watching and participating. Do not forget, we have that 30% off dye bond sale going on till Saturday at midnight that evening. So go ahead and take advantage of that. It's a really
We've got lots of dye bond in stock, lots
Yeah.
of blank sheets of dye bond.
It is and if you
so
want to go on to
we
our
need to
first,
get rid of it.
yeah, go take a look at some of the textured print stuff. That's amazing if you want to try diversifying your art with a really nice textured media, or your photography.
Mhm.
This is a great media to try that on. So again, we thank you guys. And next month, we're going to look at going through GeoGalleries, think, or
What we're going to do.
GeoGalleries.
Yeah, I think we're going to cover.
Well, we'll show you again, kind of a refresher of
yeah,
GeoGalleries. There's
yeah.
a few slight, changes that we've made over the last year. I think it's
Yeah.
been so maybe a little more than
So we'll try to
17
cover.
months.
I think most of our new users for GeoGalleries are probably aware of those, but maybe some of the older users might not. Maybe you're even thinking of joining GeoGalleries with your artwork. We'll have some good information, cover how to how to sign up, what we're looking for, or what GeoGalleries is looking for, I should say.
Selecting your images that are good
Yeah.
for it. What's going to be a good seller on there for you guys, and really, what we've seen successful artists on there
Yeah.
do
'Cause
hopefully will help you.
FinerWorks is GeoGalleries is semi-independent. It's reliant on FinerWorks for production. Right now, it shares some of the same resources as FinerWorks, but eventually it's going to be totally separate, with the exception of the production side, where FinerWorks will continue the production side. So we will, we want people kind of also understand how it works. That GeoGalleries is not FinerWorks. FinerWorks handles the fulfillment, and that's kind of the model behind it. And but we definitely recommend it and believe that it can be beneficial. It's been beneficial to quite a few artists so far.
Okay. Thank you, Donna. Also join us again also Thursday. That'll be the 3rd for Photo Tips Monthly. We have Jim Landers, and he's going to be talking to on a topic that applies for artists and photographers, marketing yourself, because that is going to, if you look out there, the art that's selling is not always, the best art. Art's subjective. It's the artist that gets in front of as many people and many eyeballs as possible. Same thing with photographers.
I think if any of his lectures are, this is one of the ones that really crosses both into the art as well as the photography community. I mean, if you're an artist, you have to see this one, because this will help. A lot of artists do not understand, do not know where to begin with marketing their work. And so this will be very helpful.
Level up.
Yeah.
So,
and even if you're really good at, say, social media marketing your artwork, you'll still come away with some good tips from this.
So so come and join us on Thursday, because again, we do these to help you guys. All right. We just want to be able to, your success kind of generates into more print sales. So it helps us too. But, seeing you guys succeed is important to us. So join us on Thursday, and thank you again for joining us. And if you need to watch the replay, just join up on YouTube on our channel. If you're on Zoom, the link is in there, and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and you can go ahead and start watching these playback immediately. Pause where you need to. Have a great evening, guys. Thank you all for joining us.
Bye-bye.